Good day, everyone. Welcome to ES311 Engineering Economics. For this course, we will be discussing primarily about money. So, baka yung iba sa inyo medyo excited kasi pera yung pag-uusapan, no? Pero pag-uusapan natin ng pera hindi sa kadahilan ng basta pag sinabing engineering or engineer ay madami na agad pera, no? So, ibang usapin pa yon. But we will be discussing primarily about money, since engineering involves more than just designing and solving technical problems. So in the future, kahit anumang landas yung tahakin nyo sa industry natin, maging kayo man ay isang office engineer or site engineer na nag-work in a corporate job from a specific company, or even if you establish your own construction firm and company, in one way or another, we as engineers will make decisions involving costs, investments, and somehow we will manage yung mga available na resources natin. So with that, it is important na dapat familiar tayo dun sa iba't ibang mga financial principles. Kasi sa atin din naman nakasalalay yung magiging success or yung magiging kapalaran ng pinaka-company natin, no? So, sa kahit anong paraan man natin tignan, so ang field natin somehow involved pa rin naman siya sa business. And pagdating sa business, syempre involved palagi yung mga costs, mga return on investments, and so on. So in general, pag-usapan natin ay tungkol kay money. So that's the reason. So in this course, we will learn how to evaluate alternatives and make economically sound engineering decisions. So sabi nga nila, engineers are problem solvers, no? So kaya ang gagawin natin, in order to solve problems, we need to compare different alternatives. So first, syempre, kailangan mo muna identify yung problem, and then you need to come up yung tinatawag nating alternatives. When say alternatives, you can think of it as parang plan A, plan B, plan C. So kaya mong timbangin ano ba yung pinakamabisang plan o alternative na kailangan mong implement dun sa ginagawa mong project. So basically, ganun yung magiging takbo ng ating discussion, no? Okay, so let's begin. So bago tayo magpunta dun sa mga solving part at sa mga more complex na discussion, so importante na maintindihan muna natin yung mga iba't ibang key principles or even mga keywords para mas mabilis nating matutunan at maintindihan yung mga susunod pa nating discussion. So starting with the definition, engineering economics is the systematic process of formulating, estimating, and evaluating the economic outcomes of engineering alternatives designed to achieve a specific objective. It applies mathematical and financial principles to compare alternatives and support sound decisions regarding the allocation and use of capital. So yun, basically yung pinaka-definition niya. So sa kahit anong paraan nating tingnan, involved pa rin dyan yung engineering alternatives. So we need to create alternatives in order to achieve a specific objective. The primary purpose of engineering economic analysis is to evaluate the economic factors affecting the success of engineering projects and identify alternative that provides the most appropriate economic value. So after managing your alternatives, no, syempre kailangan mong piliin ano ba yung pinaka-economical, ano ba yung pinaka-optimal na plan na alternative na kakailanganin natin implement in order to get a better or the best economic value dun sa ating project. So it is also referred to as engineering economic analysis, or capital allocation analysis. So para lang masum up natin no, yung sinasabi ng definition na to, in order for us to make a decision, ito yung pinaka-formula na pwede natin gamitin. Hindi naman to talaga ang formula, no? Basta just to, para lang mas mabilis natin maintindihan tong pinaka-definition ng engineering economics. So kapag pinagsama-sama natin lahat ng pag-aaralan nating economic principles, mathematical principles, and financial principles, so dun pa lang tayo makakapag-come up ng economically sound na decision. So that's engineering economics. Additionally, engineering economics supports decision-making rather than replacing it. So a while ago, sabi ko nga, we as engineers, sabi nila, tayo ay mga problem solvers. And Pagdating sa site kasi or sa trabaho mismo, syempre, ang isang engineer, ang trabaho niyan, hindi lang naman malaking pera ang involved lagi, no? So, very critical yung industry kasi natin kasi it's not just about money. More importantly, for example, sa mga civil engineers, kung nagde-design tayo ng structures. So, aside from yung malaking cost sa mga projects na ginagawa natin, so involved din yung buhay ng mga tao. Kapag pumalpak ka, so hindi lang pera yung nalugi, so possible pang merong maapektuhan or mawalang buhay. So, kaya importante na pag gumagawa tayo ng desisyon, so hindi lang basta bara-bara, hindi lang basta pwede na. So, minsan, syempre, nakakatakot gumawa ng mabigat talagang desisyon kung malaki yung nakasalalay no, doon sa desisyon na yon. Pero, dito kay Engineering Economics, sasabi, tayong mga engineers, dapat wala tayong choice kundi gumawa ng desisyon. Kasi that's our job. And sabi dito kay Engineering Economics, so rather than replacing it, dapat kailangan natin i-support yung decision making. So, itong decision making, ito, kung nagsosolve tayo ng problem and we're comparing alternatives to come up with the right decision. So, engineers, managers, and other decision makers use mathematical models, financial concepts, and evaluation criteria to assess alternatives. Since engineering decisions generally involve future outcomes, the analysis relies on the estimates of future costs, benefits, revenues, and other economic factors. So, dito medyo marami na mga term na pabanggit, no? Pero just to give you an example, pagdating dito kay engineering economics, isang common na scenario. So, dito sa left side natin, tingin tayo dito sa picture. So, ang scenario dito, i-maintain mo daw ba yung isang old na machine? Or sa kanan naman, bibili ka na lang ng bago. So, dito, hindi lang talaga tayo magdedesisyon kumbaga kung ano lang yung nakikita natin sa present. So, sabi dyan kasi, we need also to estimate the future costs and benefits. So, tignan natin na mas maigi itong example natin. So, dito kay left, so maintaining an old machine rather than buying a new machine. So, dito, hindi ka gagastos ng initial cost sa paggawa ng or pagbili ng bagong machine. However, malaki naman yung repair cost, maintenance cost, and downtime. Kasi downtime kasi, kung isang malaki yung project yan, kahit isang araw lang na delay, malaki na yung impact sa project nun. So, malaking kalugihan na yun para dun sa company. So, kailangan nating tingnan lahat ng yun pag i-consider natin etong alternative na to. So, dito, sabi dyan, lower initial cost. Dito naman sa kanan, so syempre, mataas yung initial cost kasi bibili ka ng bagong machine. However, bago yung machine mo, so mas mababawasan naman yung maintenance and downtime. Diyan din papasok yung efficiency and productivity kasi halos wala ng downtime. So imagine mo na lang, laging nasisira yung machine na ginagamit. O dyan, ang example is electric mixer, or not electric mixer, sorry, concrete mixer. So mixer, o laging sira. So pag sira yung mixer, syempre magpapala na lang yung mga construction worker natin. So kung marami yung bubuhusan, pwede sobrang tagal nilang magpapala maghahalo ng semento compared kung meron kang machine, no? So yun, basically, ang pinakamalaking factor dito para sa akin no, is the downtime. Especially kung malaking project yan. So dito, the best decision is not the cheapest today, but the most economical over its entire life. So hindi natin dapat tinitignan lang ano yung mura sa ngayon. So kailangan din nating i-consider yung mga future na costs, ano yung mga other underlying factors na nakaka-apekto dun sa ating magiging decision. Next, 4 fundamental elements are considered in an engineering economic analysis. So kapag mag-analyze tayo ng mga problems pagdating dito kay econ, so ito yung 4 na tinitignan natin. So cash flows, timing of cash flows, interest rate, and measure of economic worth. So si cash flows, ito basically yung mga pumapasok at lumalabas sa pera. So parang literal na definition niya, pag-flow ng cash. So paglabas at pagpasok ng cash in the form of costs, revenues, savings, investments, and so on. Next, so kailan ba dumadating yung mga cash flows na yon. So, ito naman yung number 2, which is the timing. And then third is the interest rate, so the rate used to account for the time value of money. So, etong interest rate kasi, syempre, instead of, let's say, buying in yung equipment, in-invest mo na lang siya. So, yung in-invest mo ngayon, in the future, lalaki siya. So, importante na tignan din natin yung interest rate pagdating dun sa economic analysis natin. So, dito, nabanggit yung time value of money. So, actually, I think this is the next slide. So, doon na lang natin siya emphasize, no? And then, last one, we have the measure of economic worth. So, the criterion used to compare alternatives and determine the preferred option. So, for the time value of money, the time value of money, in short, TVM, refers to the change in the economic value of money over time. A unit of money available today has a different economic value from the same unit received or paid at a future date because money can earn a return when invested or incur a cost when borrowed. So dito, ang pinaka-highlight dyan is the change in the economic value of money. So habang lumilipas daw ang panahon, so nagbabago ang economic value ng pera. So, a common example niyan is the purchasing power of money. So, nung mga bata-bata pa tayo, ako personally, nung mga elementary pa lang ako, ang pansit canton, 7 isa. So, parang sa 21 pesos may 3 pansit canton na. Pero ngayon, yung 20 mo, parang isang pansit canton na lang yung mabibili. So, that's a common example ng drastic change in the economic value of money. So, aside from the purchasing power, no? Dito papasok yung tinatawag nating interest. So, kapag in-invest mo yung pera mo sa isang investment that earns interest, so, syempre, kung 1,000 yan ngayon, possible maging, let's say, 1,100 na siya after 1 year. So, that's the investment. So, nagbabago pa rin yung value ng money. So, ganun din naman, kapag umutang ka ng 1,000 ngayon, syempre, magkakaroon ng tubo yan. So, ang babayaran mo na, 1,100. Wherein yung original na utang mo lang is 1,000. So, vice versa. So, time value of money provides the basis for converting and comparing monetary amounts occurring at different points in time. Next, principles of engineering economics. There's an important procedure used to address the development and selection of alternatives, commonly referred to as the problem-solving approach or the decision-making process. The steps in the approach are these 7 steps. So, ito kumbaga, hindi naman siya necessary na sundan yun, no? Sa mga pagsasolve natin ng problem. Pero, para lang template siya na pwede nyong sundan, pwede rin namang hindi. Depende na lang kung ano yung mas, kumbaga, favorable para sa inyo. Pero itong 7 kasi na to, kumbaga ito yung common na ginagawa. So, understanding the problem and defining the objective, collecting relevant information. So, parang nagsasolve lang din tayo ng isang problem solving sa math. What is as, what are the given, and so on. So, parang ganito lang din itong steps na to, no? So, dito, after collecting relevant, define the feasible alternative solution and make realistic estimates, followed by identify the criteria for decision making using one or more attributes. This is a typo, no? This is or dapat. Evaluate each alternative using sensitivity analysis to enhance the evaluation. So, kung tinutukoy naman na sensitivity analysis dito, so ito kasi tinatawag din siyang what if analysis, no? Kumbaga, sinusukat mo lang kapag nag-input ka ng isang variable, ano yung nagiging effect niya dun sa output. So, parang ganun yung sensitivity analysis. And then, selecting the best alternative and then implementing the solution. So, eto, ulitin ko, this is just a template, no? Na pwede nyo sundan, pwede rin hindi. Depende kung ano yung mas pabor para sa inyo. Next one is the economic environment. The engineering decisions do not occur in isolation. They are influenced by economic environment, which determines the cost of resources, the value of money, the availability of capital, and the financial outcomes of engineering projects. Understanding these economic factors enables engineers to evaluate alternatives and make informed decisions. So doon sa pinaka-economic environment kasi natin, marami tayong kailangang maintindihan dito, no? So kaya eto mga preceding na slides natin primarily are about principles, about terms na madalas ginagamit kay economics. So before proceeding with engineering economic analysis, so these are the several terms that must be understood. First, we have the consumer goods and services. So sabi dyan, ito yung mga products and services that are directly used by the people to satisfy their wants. So, just to sum it up, pag sinabing consumer goods, ito na yung mga end, or kumbaga ito na yung mga nabibili nating product, ito na yung mga na-avail nating services sa market. For example, food. That's a product, consumer good. Pag service naman ba, haircut. That's an example of a consumer service. Next, pag sinabi naman nating producer goods and services, so ito naman yung mga ginagamit in order to produce yung mga consumer goods. So kung dito, ang example natin ng consumer product ay pagkain, dito naman kay producer goods, so ano ba yung mga ingredients ng pagkain na yun? Let's say, bumili ka ng tinapay. That's a product. So ano ba yung ingredients ng tinapay na yun? So yun yung pasok dito kay producer goods. So kung sa services mo, nagpagupit ka, so yun yung consumer service. Dito naman kay producer service, so ano ba yung ginamit nung nagpagupit ka? So yun yung mga pasok naman dito kay producer services. Next, necessities are those products or services that are required to support human life and activities that will be purchased in somewhat the same quantity even though the price varies considerably. So necessities, basically, ito yung mga needs. So sabi dyan, to support human life. So syempre yung mga needs natin, food, water, shelter, and so on. Dito naman kay luxuries, are those products that are desired by humans and will be purchased if money is available after the required necessities have been obtained. So kung si necessities, ito yung mga needs. Si luxuries naman, ito yung nag-fall dun sa mga wants natin. Na sinabi dyan, will be purchased if money is available after the required necessities have been obtained. So ganoon naman talaga no, kapag luxuries. So syempre kailangan mo unahin priority si necessities kasi siya yung kailangan mo para mabuhay. Next term, we have demand. Demand is the quantity of a certain commodity that is bought at a certain price at a given place and time. Si demand, basically, it is the desire ng customer na bilhin yung binibenta mo. So, gaano ba ka-willing yung mga consumer na i-avail yung ino-offer mong service or product. So, that's the demand. Next term, we have elastic demand. So, when we say elastic demand, occurs when a decrease in selling price results in a greater than proportionate increase in sales. So, dito kasi ang nabanggit lang is a decrease in selling price, no? Pero in general, kung i-define natin sa elastic demand, kapag nagbago yung presyo ng isang produkto, meron bang malaking pagkakaiba dun sa sales niya? So, vice versa, pag nag-decrease, lalaki ba ng sobra-sobra yung sales? On the other hand, kapag nag-increase ka ba ng selling price, bababa ng husto yung sales mo. So, kapag ganun yung naging reaction, no? Kumbaga dito, yung selling price, or kumbaga yung price, o yung sales, ay nagre-react dun sa selling price. So, kung sobrang, kumbaga sensitive ng sales, konting pagbabago dun sa selling price, sobrang laki na nung impact dun sa dami ng sales. So, yun yung tinatawag nating elastic demand. So, I hope na susundan na. Next, we have the inelastic demand. So, ito kabaliktaran naman ni elastic. So, kanina sabi natin, si elastic, konting pagbabagong selling price, malaking impact dun sa sales. Dito naman, kahit magbago ka ng selling price, kumbaga halos walang impact dun sa sales mo. So, yun yung tinatawag nating elastic demand. So, ulitin natin, no? Si elastic, nagbago ka ng selling price, tapos naapektuhan ng malaki yung sales mo. Either bumaba or lumaki siya, vice versa. Dito naman kay inelastic, nagbago ka ng presyo, pero halos walang impact dun sa dami ng sales mo. So that's inelastic demand. Next, we have the unitary elasticity of demand. So may figure to. So occurs when the mathematical product of volume and price is constant. So etong, sabi dyan mathematical product, no? So yung product ng volume and price. So kung ikaw ang nagbebenta, ako yung seller, so yung price ng pagbenta mo, tapos gaano karaming nabenta mo. So para mas maintindihan natin, so that's basically yung revenue. Magkano yung napagbentahan mo? So yun yung tinutukoy ng mathematical product ng volume and price. So dito sa figure natin, etong una, dito sa kabila, ito yung pinaka graph ng ating law of demand. So kaya makikita nyo dyan, general price and demand relationship. So dito, kapag lumalaki yung presyo, lumilit yung demand. For the reason, syempre, mahal yung produkto, mas konti yung makaka-afford sa kanya. Vice versa, kapag mababa yung presyo, malaki yung demand kasi mas marami yung may kakayahang bilhin yung produkto na yun. So that's basically yung tinatawag nating law of demand, no? Ito naman is yung itsura kapag pinag-compare natin yung luxuries and necessities. So dito, si necessities, kapag lumaki yung price mo, lumiliit yung demand. Pero siguro para mas maintindihan natin to, ang gamitin nating explanation sa kanya is yung elastic tapos yung inelastic. So etong si luxury actually is yung example natin ng isang elastic demand. So ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin luxury, let's say alahas na lang para mas mabilis nating maintindihan. Kapag ang presyo ng alahas, sobrang laki nung tinaas, let's say nagmahal yung isang alahas, so syempre, yung bibili nun, medyo mababawasan. Let's say, original ang alahas mo, 5K lang, tapos ginawang naging 50K, so times 10 the price. So ngayon, syempre, yung sales mo, lalagapak yan kasi mas konti ng sobra yung makaka-afford nung luxury na yon. Compare dito kay necessity, so kung si luxury, mag-fall siya under kay elastic demand, si necessity naman, dito siya kay inelastic. So inelastic siya, pag sinabi kasi natin necessity, di ba, ito yung mga needs natin. So this is non-negotiable. Kahit man magtaas ng presyo, ang isang necessity, no choice ang mga tao kundi bilhin siya. Ibig sabihin, magbago man ng presyo, halos walang impact yun dun sa sales. Kasi, no choice yung mga tao, kundi bilhin pa rin. Kasi necessity yun. For example na lang ngayon, gasolina. The gasolina is now considered as necessity nowadays. So, from around 50 pesos, umabot pa ng 90 pesos. Pero syempre, hindi naman nabawasan yung pinaka-sales ng mga gasolinahan. Kasi no choice naman yung mga tao, kailangan nilang magpagasolina. Kahit pa lumaki yung presyo ng gasolina ngayon. That's basically yung case natin kay necessities. Ulitin natin, si luxury, siya ay under kay elastic demand, while si necessities naman is under kay inelastic. Additionally, itong tinatawag din nating unitary elasticity of demand, no? It also means na yung pinaka-change na ginagawa natin dun sa price will somewhat equate to an equal change dun sa demand. For example, yung selling price natin nag-change ng 10%. Let's say, nag-increase or decrease. So, 10% yung change dun sa selling price. Ibig sabihin nun, pagdating kay demand, meron ding 10% na it's either increase or decrease din. Kasi by definition, si unitary elastic demand is an economic concept where a change in price causes an equally proportional change in the quantity demanded. So, yun po yung ating unitary elasticity of demand. Next, we have the perfect competition. So this occurs in a situation where a commodity or service is supplied by a number of vendors and there is nothing to prevent the additional vendors entering the market. So ito si perfect competition, actually in actual wala naman talaga nag-exist na ganito, no? Kasi ito yung ideal na condition dun sa ating market. Pero dito kay perfect competition, ang pinaka-definition natin sa kanya, kumbaga, siya ay isang theoretical market structure wherein yung mga maliliit na firms or maliliit na seller ay nagbibenta ng identical na products. So yung mga consumers, meron silang complete na information dun sa binibentang mga products, and any single company acts as a price taker with zero barriers to entry and exit. So walang bilang kung malaking company ka or maliit, so pare-parehas yung trato sa inyo ng customer. So, dun sa common kasi na market natin, so syempre, yung iba preferred nila yung mga branded and so on. Pero dito kay perfect competition, so lahat pantay-pantay sa paningin ng consumer, ng customer natin. So that's perfect competition. Next, we have the monopoly. Is the opposite of perfect competition, where a single entity controls the market pricing and supply. So dito, kumbaga, pantay-pantay yung lahat ng sellers dito kay perfect competition. So dito naman kay monopoly, kumbaga, kinigatekeep niya yung market, so sa kanya lang nakasalalay yung market pricing and supply. So sabi dyan, single entity controls the market pricing and supply. So, ang common example niyan ngayon, so modern example, is yung mga utility providers natin. So, sa Manila, Meralco. So, Meralco lang yung nag-iisang supplier ng kuryente. So, pa ba? Water concessionaires, Maynila, then Manila Water, and so on. So, yun yung mga example ng monopoly natin. So, dito naman kay perfect monopoly, exists when a unique product or service is available from a single vendor, and that vendor can prevent the entry of all other into the market. So dito sa atin, I'm not aware kung meron man tayong perfect monopoly, no? Pero ang pinaka-characteristics na itong si perfect monopoly, kumbaga, yung single vendor na yun, siya lang yung meron nung isang specific na product. Kumbaga, the product or service is very unique na hindi siya kayang, or hindi madaling i-replicate ng iba. To the point na pag ginaya is pwede sila mag-open ng another market or magbebenta sila ng similar na product. So, that's ang takis, no? So, pagdating kay perfect monopoly, so isang or single vendor lang din and nag-offer siya ng isang unique product na kumbaga hindi siya madaling i-replicate. And for that reason, napiprevent na yung entry ng all other vendors dun sa ating market. Next is the oligopoly. Exists when there are few suppliers of a product or service that action by one will most inevitably result in similar action by the others. So dito, few yung suppliers, tapos pare-parehas sila ng binibenta. So ang common na example naman ngayon in modern is mga gas station. Mga ano natin, Shell, Petron. So iilan lang naman yung mga providers natin. So, similar case for telecommunications, mga Globe, Smarts. So, dito, ang pinaka-characteristics naman ng oligopoly, so, konti yung supplier, tapos, kapag, let's say, yung isa nagbago ng presyo, so, sa malamang, yung ibang mga supplier magbabago din ng presyo. That's oligopoly. Next, we have the supply. Supply is the quantity of a certain commodity that is offered for sale at a certain price and at a given place and time. So, kanina yung demand, ito yung willingness ng consumer, ng buyer to avail your product. Ito naman si supply is how much, so gaano karami yung quantity ng isang certain commodity na pwede mong i-offer para masatisfy yung demand ng ating mga consumer. So, that's the supply. Next, we have the law of demand and supply. Under conditions of perfect competition, the price at which a given product will be supplied and purchased is the price that will result in the supply and demand being equal. So, ito yung ating dalawang figure. So, dito sa ating left, we have the figure ng ating law of supply naman. So, dito sa ating law of supply, so kapag tumataas ang presyo, tataas din ang supply. Kumbaga, madaling explanation nito. So, kung isang produkto, mahal siya binibili ng mga consumers. So, syempre, yung supplier, mag-aangkat siya ng marami para mas lalo siyang kumita kasi nga pataas yung presyo, mas malaki yung kikitain niya. Basically, ganun gumagana yung law of supply natin. And dito naman sa kanan na figure, ito yung price, supply, and demand relationship. So, dito kasi kay law of supply and demand, so sabi dyan, yung price at which a given product will be supplied and purchased is the price that will result in the supply and the demand being equal. So, ano nangyayari kasi? So, syempre yung market price, ito yung price kung saan parehas na masasatisfy yung buyer and seller. So, sa point of view ng isang buyer, hindi ka naman bibili ng product na masyadong mahal para sa'yo. Sa POV naman ng seller, so hindi ka naman magbibenta ng product na masyadong mura to the point na malulugi ka. Kumbaga, magtatagpo yung presyo na magsasatisfy both dun sa ating seller and buyer. So, ito yung point kung saan nagtagpo yung dalawang graph ng ating or dalawang curve ng ating demand and supply. So, ito tinatawag din nating market clearing price. Next. So, law of diminishing returns. So, when the use of one of the factors of production is limited, sobrang sa pindot. Balik natin. When the use of one of the factors of production is limited, either in increasing cost or by absolute quantity, a point will be reached beyond which an increase in the variable factors will result in a less than proportionate increase in output. So, dito papasok ang tinatawag nating input and output, no? So, commonly, let's say, ito ang ginamit kasi na example is performance curve of an electric motor relationship. So, commonly, kapag nag-input ka, merong lalabas na output. So, initially, yung dami ng input mo will correspond sa isang certain na dami din ng output. Pero ang tinutukoy dito kay diminishing returns, so darating yung point wherein kahit dagdagan mo pa ng dagdagan yung input mo, so yung lumalabas na output is hindi na nadagdagan. So for example dito, so very steep yung curve natin. Ibig sabihin dyan, say parang 1:1. Pag meron kang 1 na input, meron kang 1 na output din. Pero darating yung point wherein kahit gawin mo pang 10 yung output mo, ang lalabas na lang na output is 3. So, parang ganun siya dito sa ating figure, no? Kasi dito, kung ipoproject natin to, pwede natin imagine na nag-horizontal na siya mula dito sa tinuturo ng cursor ko. So, yung nakikita yung cursor, no? So, nag-straight line na punta dito hanggang makaabot ka ng, let's say, 10. Or even dito kaya, 5 lang. 5, 6, 7, 8. So, kahit taasan mo pa ng taasan yung input, hindi na tumataas yung output. So, yun yung tinutukoy natin kay law of diminishing returns. Kumbaga, yung returns mo nagdi-diminish. So, hindi na siya bumabalik. Kumbaga, mas marami na yung ipinapasok mo kaysa dun sa bumabalik sa'yo. So, that's the law of diminishing returns. Next, we have the fixed costs, are those unaffected by changes in activity level over a feasible range of operation for the capacity or capability available. Typical fixed costs includes insurance and taxes on facilities, general management and administrative salaries, license fees, and interest costs on borrowed capital. So, pag sinabi nating fixed, literal na fixed siya. So, sa paggawa ng isang product, for example, so meron tayong iba't ibang klase kasi ng cost na tinitignan. So, pag sinabi nating cost, say, example na lang tayo ng isang business. So, magtatayo ka ng isang business. So, first step mo, let's say, nagpatayo ka ng shop mo. And then, magpo-produce ka ng isang certain na product. So, yung ginamit mo, pampatayo ng shop mo, that is considered as fixed cost. Fixed cost siya kasi kahit gaano man karami yung mabenta mo, yung ginastos mo doon sa pagpapatayo ng shop, kumbaga wala siyang direct na connection. Another example, for example, ang binibenta mo na lang, let's say, tinapay. So, nagpatayo ka ng bakery mo. So, regardless, gaano karami yung mabenta mong tinapay, so yung nagastos mo kung patayo ng shop, hindi na mababago yun. So, nandun na yun. that's fixed already. So, yun yung tinutukoy natin kay fixed cost, no? Kaya ang common dyan, kumbaga, ito yung mga cost bago pa man mag-commence yung isang business. Kumbaga, ito na yung initial na nagastos mo na bago ka pa magbenta. Kaya yung mga example dito, insurance, taxes, general administrative taxes, license fees, and so on. Next naman is yung variable cost natin. So, pag sinabi ng mga variable cost, ito yung mga associated with an operation that varies in total with the quantity of output or other measures of activity level. For example, the cost of material and labor used in a product or service are variable costs because they vary in total with the numbers of output units even though the cost per unit stays the same. So, doon na lang tayo sa bakery natin na example kanina, no? So, ang fixed cost mo doon, ano yung mga nagastos mo bago ka pa makapagbenta? Yun yung fixed cost. Dito naman kay variable cost, so syempre, magbibenta ka ng tinapay. So, nandiyan yung mga ingredients. So, depende gaano karaming tinapay yung gagawin mo. Nakadepende din doon gaano karaming arena o asukal yung magagamit mo. So, variable, ibig sabihin, nagva-vary siya. And it depends kung gaano ka taas yung activity level, gaano karaming tinapay yung gusto mong i-produce. So, that's yung tinatawag nating variable cost. So, I hope naiintindihan yung pinagkaiba ng fixed and variable, no? Next is the incremental cost or incremental revenue. Is the additional cost or revenue that results from increasing the output of a system by one or more units. So, pagdating naman dito, it's more related naman pagdating, for example, mag-i-expand ka na ng business. So, doon na lang sa bakery na gamitin din natin. So, originally, nung kakastart mo ng business, ang binibenta mong tinapay sa isang araw, 1,000. So, ang kailangan mong tao doon, let's say, 2, 3. So, yun yung required pa lang na manpower doon sa initial na business mo. Pero after some time, let's say, lumago yung business, tapos ang binibenta mo na kada isang araw is 5,000 na tinapay na, so, syempre, kailangan mo magdagdag ng tao. So, ang tinutukoy natin incremental cost dito, basically, yung additional expense incurred when a business produce one or more unit or expand its operation. So, that's the incremental cost. So, it is also known as the differential cost and nakakatulong din siya to decide dun sa pricing, outsourcing, and other special orders, no? So, yun yung tinutukoy natin as incremental cost. So, para mas maintindihan natin itong tatlong ito, actually, yung next part will be an example. So, medyo mahababa yung problem and I think mas okay kung puputulin muna natin yung video dito, no? So, separate ko na lang itong si sample problem 1. So, dito medyo marami. Tapos, ang tinatanong kasi dito, so, compare two sites in terms of their fixed, variable, and total cost. So, I will end this video muna and start another one.